Everyone, it's Patch 3.23 Affliction, and today we need to talk about some massive PoE news that are going to be upcoming for both 3.24 and for PoE 2's future. A few days ago, Scissorin did an interview with some members of GGG, and towards the end of this interview, questions shifted over to trade, and we got some important new announcements about the future of trading in Path of Exile. So to put it bluntly, PoE 2 is going to get an auction house, and PoE 1 trading is going to be better, and potentially even get an auction house itself in the future. This is probably some of the biggest news that we could possibly have for the future of Path of Exile, and personally for me, it's invigorated my love for this game even more, and I'm so excited for the future of this game. What GG have said during this interview is they specifically mentioned that people will not be happy with a system that doesn't involve instant buyouts in a modern ARPG. They understand that this is a very important issue for a lot of people and that they have no excuse for players to not be enjoying a system. If something is not enjoyable, they have to find a way to solve that, and they will find a way to solve it, which means we are going to be getting all the trade improvements that are going to be coming with PoE 2. Now, a lot of this is potentially subject to change. They did try to talk about it as much as they can, but they did specifically say that there's a lot of issues and a lot of problems to still solve, but the groundwork is still there for us to effectively get an auction house in the game. So GG have previously said, and we've seen this plenty of times through all the trade manifestos that we've had over the years, that friction needs to exist in the game. Otherwise, GG personally believes that if friction doesn't exist, the game will be too easy, item acquisition will be too easy, and people will enjoy playing the game for as long. In GGG's eyes, the situation is now different. After seeing Last Epoch and their trade system, they don't think we live in a world where the current system is good enough. In my opinion, if you want to know what I think that Last Epoch is going to be such a competitor for GG, and that GG do see it as a, not necessarily a threat, but as a game that's going to take market share away from PoE, as PoE is kind of the dominant ARPG currently. And they're seeing what Last Epoch is doing with their trade system, which if you want to know more, I have a whole video talking about how trade is going to work in Last Epoch, which I'll link in the description below. I would really recommend it if you want to be caught up on what Last Epoch is actually doing. And because of how good Last Epoch system is looking to be, GG understood that if they want to compete and if they want PoE 2 to succeed as much as possible, in their own words, they need to give the times and they need to give the players something better. Now, there's a few issues with this from GG's perspective. Obviously, if they were to just make a system where you can immediately buy whatever you want and immediately post whatever you want, there would be some issues with both botting, with flippers, and with all the nasty things that come with some sort of auction house system. And well, PoE 2 is actually a perfect time, since they're changing a lot about the game, that they can finally go in and change trade at a fundamental level to make a system like this work, since they have identified that players will not accept anything else other than that in a modern ARPG. So because of this, the auction house in PoE 2 will work off of gold. Now, gold will not be the main currency. Instead, what gold will be an untradeable currency that you earn while playing the game, that you will gain presumably more and more of an end game in comparison to early game, which would stop people from just making level 1 characters and just playing the auction house game all day. And the gold will be used as a way to tax you, or as a way to pay a fee to be able to use the auction house. So some examples they've given is if you want to buy currency, for example, if I want to sell my div for chaos, I would also have to pay a gold fee if I were specifically buying from someone else. The burden of paying gold is going to be on the buyer, not the seller. The reason for this being that they want trade to be as easy as it currently is, where I could just dump all my items into a stash tab and they automatically all get posted. And if somebody wants to buy something, they can message me for it. They don't want to put arbitrary limits on trading, such as limited trade windows or any of the other systems that other auction houses might have. They want people to be able to post as many items as they want, as frequently as they want, with no problems. The only friction here is going to be if you want to purchase something, you're going to also need to pay a gold fee. But if I were to attempt to purchase someone's chaos for my div, if I was looking to go to them and take their chaos, I would have to pay a small gold fee as a convenience, or as a way to still induce friction and to stop all the bad things that could potentially come from an auction house with people abusing it. And this gold fee is going to be substantially higher for gear, because gear still needs some sort of friction. I agree with GG on this. At first, hearing about this, you might not like it, needing some sort of arbitrary friction in the game, but realistically it does make a lot of sense. And Last Epoch is doing the same thing, to where you will need a currency that you just earn by playing the game to be able to trade on the auction house, just to prevent people from, say for example, flipping items and not really playing the game and abusing the auction house, instead of just using it as a way to trade easier. And because of this, gear will cost more just to create some sort of scarcity. But GG understands, and they specifically said themselves, that players will not accept anything but an instant buyout system. They have two ways that they could have gone about trade in general. They could have either made searching for whatever item you want super easy, which is what we currently have with all of our filters and our ability to create massive and complex search options on the trade website to find exactly what you want, but at the same time having a difficult time trading with people, right? The current friction in the system, which we all hate, is actually getting someone to leave their map or to actually want to trade you or to want to do a 1C trade. And the other option is to make that super easy. For example, if I find the item I want, I just click buy and immediately goes to me. But the downside would be finding the item being very difficult, just like how the console trade system works currently, where console basically has an auction house, but it's basically impossible to search that auction house other than going through pages and pages and pages of gear. And for all of PoE's history, we've had the first option, but now they understand that that needs to change. And that is why gold is going to make this possible. And it's what's going to allow us to not only have the super easy search that we currently have, but also be able to just click buy on an item and for that item to immediately appear in my inventory, because gold will be the limiting factor here that will still make you have to play the game. So with all this, the TLDR for PoE 2, at least from what they've told us so far, is effectively going to be a system where I can just put whatever I want into a stash tab, price it, it'll be put up on the auction house or whatever system we are going to be using. They didn't specifically call an auction house, but again, it's the easiest way to describe the system just by saying it is an auction house. And then all you're going to have to do is simply open up either the trade website or however this is going to be handled, maybe some sort of UI in game. You're going to search for the items you want. You're going to click buy. You're going to have to pay whatever the person wants for it. So, for example, I want 20C for a Mage Blood. You're going to have 20C, and you're going to have some amount of gold to be able to pay the fee of being able to buy it. You just click buy, and the Mage Blood comes into your inventory or somewhere where you can collect it. And then the seller gets the currency that you paid for it. And the nice thing is that GGG said they want everything on here. They understand that if they're going to do this, players are not going to be happy if it's just currency or just gear. People are going to want everything. And they just want to make the players happy. And in my opinion, I feel like they just want people to really enjoy PoE 2 without complaining about trade the whole time. Realistically, what I think is happening here, the reason this is finally changing, as they said, they need to give it the time, is due to mounting pressure, due to all the drama around TFT and all the shady stuff that is happening with them, while at the same time, them seeing Last Epoch as a massive competitor, and with Last Epoch itself having a much more streamlined and much more user-friendly trading system. I think all this, along with them wanting PoE 2 to do as well as possible, is what's causing them to do all this. And that makes me so happy that we're finally getting competition in the ARPG scene, which is causing both games to have to directly compete with each other, which means they're going to innovate and make their games themselves a lot better to draw players to it. Competition is always healthy, and the fact that PoE basically held a monopoly on the ARPG scene for years now was very much not healthy. As we can see, we're getting some massive changes due to said competition. But that's not everything that they talked about. They've also, in this interview, briefly discussed some things that are going to be coming for PoE 1. So Zizarin did specifically ask, would this be something that would be viable to add into PoE 1? And they said the issue here is that PoE 1 doesn't have gold, and without it, they wouldn't be able to put this into PoE 1. It would require a lot of changes to the base game to be able to fit in an auction house. And they said they're open to it and they're willing to put an auction house into PoE 1 as well, but they just don't currently have the time due to the PoE 2 beta starting up here in a few months. And, PoE 2 eventually is going to most likely be released next year, which means that they would rather test a system in PoE 2 where the game is being designed with this in mind to see how it works, to see how they can improve it, and to potentially add it to PoE 1 in the future. It needs a lot of testing, but as I said, they do want to add something to PoE 1 to make PoE 1 trading better. That means we'll eventually potentially see an auction house or some sort of better trading system coming to PoE 1 in the future. That's not everything. We did get some news for what's coming up in the next league. So next league, more items are going to be itemized. Now, Zizarin started this by talking about Ailsling in PoE 2 specifically, and if that's going to be itemized. And the devs kind of spun that around and said, well, in PoE 1, next patch, it is being itemized. So that means that we are either going to be getting a full itemization of Betrayal, which means Ailsling, instead of you going and killing a Katarina and then going downstairs and looting all the things and having an Ailsling bench, you might instead have a chest, and when you open that chest, it's going to give you a Veiled Exalted Orb, for example, which, would be a representation of what Ailsling does, and it turns that effect into an item that would allow you to trade it. They could also do this for Varici, for example, with a veiled chromatic orb that would do the same thing. They do the same thing with Tora by dropping Faster's lenses, and the same with Hillock with some sort of veiled glass blower or veiled whetstone or armor scrap, or which is what I personally think they're going to do instead, is that they are going to itemize the whole thing. So you know how if you do an Alva temple and once you finish it, you get an item that you can put into your map device to run the actual temple? In my opinion, I most likely assume that they are going to do that. When your Katarina is ready to go, you'll be able to itemize your Betrayal as an item. And for example, if you had a tier 3 Varici or a tier 3 Ailshling ready to go, on the item, it would say, this is who is going to be in the safe house. And then you can just put that in, up for sale. If I want to buy a tier 3 Ailshling, I would do the same thing as if I were to buy, for example, a double corrupt temple, and I would just search specifically for that. I think that system's going to be a lot easier for them to implement. It'll be a lot faster for them to implement, but I can see them go in either way. Now, they did say a lot of items are going to be itemized. So I am going to assume, and I'm going to go on a limb here, that Betrayal might not be the only thing they're looking to itemize. Betrayal is by far the biggest issue currently in terms of the next thing to itemize. For example, a few leagues ago, they itemized harvest, which is what's turned it into a amazing farming method that a lot of people love farming now, just because we now just farm life force instead of getting the crafts handed to us during the harvest itself and having to sell them directly. And with us assuming that all Betrayal is going to be updated and modernized so we can finally be able to purchase it without using TFT and having to services and having to trust people that they won't take our items and whatnot. The only other major thing that I can see that they would itemize if they are going to do another massive itemization pass on the game would be sets. So, you know, currently with the new jewel Adorned, you have to take the 4 vault pieces and arrange them in a specific pattern in your inventory, and then they just combine together into the jewel, and that's how you create the jewel. I wouldn't be surprised next league if we get the same thing for fragments. An example of this would be if I were to take all 4 of the shaper fragments and put them together with the correct corners in each slots in a 2x2, they would now combine together into a shaper key, which would just make it substantially easier for both the seller to sell their shaper fragments, meaning they don't have to sell 4 different items, and for the buyer to just be able to buy one item if they want to do shaper instead of having to buy 4 individual fragments from potentially 4 different people. And I would assume that if they're going to do that, they're going to do that for all sets. So they would do that for Cyrus, they would do that for Elder, they would do that for Shaper, the Uber variants of everything. And in my opinion, that would add a massive amount of quality of life. And that would probably be the next biggest thing that needs to be itemized in the game. But with those 2 things being itemized, if we do get sets on top of Betrayal being itemized, trading in PoE next patch is going to be so much simpler than it currently is. And I'm looking forward to it quite a lot. Even if it's just Betrayal, like they mentioned, that's going to be more than enough. It's going to open up high-end crafting to a lot more people that either don't want to risk their item on TFT or don't want to go through the process of using TFT simply because they'll just be able to buy it off a trade, which is going to be substantially easier to do. Overall, I am so excited for all the changes that are coming, and I'm so excited for the auction house. And I'm happy that GG finally understood that they need to change. I need to keep up with the times. And I'm finally so happy that they're giving the players pretty much what we've been begging for years at this point. This gives me so much hope for the future of PoE, as personally, I've been kind of feeling down about PoE more and more with each passing season for the past 2 years or so. I was slowly losing my enjoyment of PoE, and a very large portion of it was simply just due to the trading system feeling so garbage to use that it was very slowly eating away my enjoyment of the game and very much making it turn mostly into just a job. And well, with these changes, my love for the game has been fully reignited back to what it was. I still love the game, and it's not like I hated it or felt like I was forced to play it or anything like that, but it was something that was slowly eroding at me, and that's completely gone now. And I feel so happy and I feel so good to play Path of Exile, and I'm so excited for the future of the game. So with all that put together, PoE's future looks bright. The game's going to be great. PoE 2, I don't care what happens with PoE 2. If the game's slower, if the game's fundamentally different, just the fact that it has an auction house is going to make me love the game. And I'm so happy that they not only mention TFT by name as an issue, but they are actively working on doing everything they can to make TFT as irrelevant as possible. If you kitties have any comments, or if you have anything to say or any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer them as soon as I can. Other than that, I stream every day on Twitch, so if you want to come by and hang out with all the kitties, I'll be more than happy to see you there. Other than that, I'll see you kitties in the next video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.